Hey guys, how's it going? So this is the review for the POLYOP 2 test. Due to time restraints, I will not be able to work the entire review. But what I do work, or what I will work, are some of the questions, and then you should be able to, from there, be able to answer the rest of them more or less based off of that. Okay, so some of these questions I'll work completely. Some of these questions I'll just start, and then you guys should be able to finish. Okay. So the first one just says simply, what is the GCF of the following polynomial? The way that we do that is we look at our numbers. We look at those first. So off to the side, I'm just going to go and write the list of 12, list of negative 64, and list of negative 256. We're going to go ahead and see what their GCF, what their greatest common factor is. Easiest way to do that is to go into your calculator, type in the number, divided by x, and then just go to your table. From your table, you should be able to tell what your factors are. So, for example, for 12, my factors are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I then do my next number. Next number is negative 64. This one is 1 and negative 64, 2 and negative 32, 4 and negative 16, and 8 and 8, or 8 and negative 8. Negative 256, this one is 1 times negative 256, 2 times negative 128, 4 times negative 64, 8 and negative 32, and 16 and negative 16. Okay, so those are my factors. From there, to find my GCF, I want to find the greatest common factor, so the biggest number that's in all of these. Well, there's a few numbers that I have in all of these. I have 1, 2, and 4 in all of these. But out of those, the biggest number that I have in all the lists is 4. So my GCF automatically is 4. Now if I want to write my entire, or my complete answer with the GCF factored out, I would then go in and factor out the GCF. Next thing what you would do is you would look at your numbers, or sorry, your letters. So x squared we can actually break up into x times x. This one is just regular x, and then this one, the number negative 256 has nothing. Right, so then I ask myself, what can I take from each group and still be fair? So this one has 2 x's, this one has 1, this one has none. I cannot take an x from everybody, from all 3 of those guys, without making it unfair for somebody. So I unfortunately cannot factor out an x, so my GCF is just simply 4. Again, if I wanted to write this out completely, this would be 4 parentheses. The way that you actually go in and factor out your GCF is you actually go in and you divide all of these by your GCF. So we divide all these by 4 if we wanted to actually factor this out fully. So 12 divided by 4 is going to give me 3. X squared. Negative 64 divided by 4 is going to give me negative 16. And again, that one has the x. And then negative 256 divided by 4 leaves me with negative 64. Okay, so if I wanted to factor this out fully, that's what my full factorization would be. I'm going to leave number 2 for you guys to practice. Number 3, I'm going to go ahead and set up number 3 for you guys, but I will not factor this out fully. Number 3, as I look at my answer choices, I notice that every single one of my answer choices has that 3 right there in the front. Again, what that means is that their GCF, whenever they worked out their problem, was 3. So what that means is I can actually go into this list, into these groups of numbers, and I can actually go through and divide all of these by 3. Again, that's me factoring out 3. So again, I do that, I do 15 divided by 3, I get 5. So this becomes 5n squared. Do negative 27 divided by 3, I get negative 9. Again, that one has the n. And then negative 6 divided by 3, I get negative 2. Okay, again, what that means is I can actually rewrite this expression up here, that 15n squared, I can actually rewrite that as 3 parentheses 5n squared minus 9n minus 2. Once I do that, then I'm going to go ahead and do Xbox. And again, I'll set this up for you guys, and you guys can solve the rest of this. But when we set up Xbox, again, if we label this A, B, and C, first thing is my A term goes in the first box. My C term, or my last term, goes in the last box. Again, make sure that you put it in there with the sign. Up top on my X, we do A times C, which is going to be 5 times -2. We ignore the n squared. It's going to give me -10. Down at the bottom is going to be my B term. So B for bottom. My B term is -9. So on your calculator, that should be enough of a setup. From there, you should be able to go in and solve. Once you factor this out fully, it should match one of your answer choices over here. Okay. I'll skip number 4. Number 5, we should be able to fill out. But I guess I can go through and actually answer a few questions on number 5. First, on number 5, there is a typo. This should be 7x and not just x, or not just 7. So again, this is just, can you actually factor this out? Can you not only multiply, but can you actually also factor out? So here I have 7x times blank, it gives me 7x squared. Well, that first one has to be x, right? 7x times x gives me 7x squared. Next, a lot of students try to do this. X times blank gives me blank. I can't answer it since I have 2 blanks here. I can go over here. 7x times 1 gives me 7x. And then what I would have to do then is I would have to factor out this one. All right, so what that says is that -10 is going to be 1 times blank gives me -10. Well, that blank over there has to be -10. Then I have x times -10 gives me -10x. When we talk about factors, your factors are always in parentheses, so you have 2 sets of parentheses. And your factors are on the outside. So for example, this would be x plus 1. And again, the order of these don't matter. The other one is going to be 7x minus 10. Your product is the stuff on the inside, so your product is this thing in here. Which, if it helps you, you can take your terms out. If I take my terms out, that would be 7x squared plus 7x minus 10x minus 10. I can take my terms out, and then I would notice that, hey, these, the 7x and the -10x, those actually combine, and I can actually combine those. So then that's going to simplify into 7x squared, 7 minus 10. It's going to give me -3, so it's going to be minus 3x, and then the -10 comes down. So then really my product is 7x squared minus 3x minus 10. Okay, again, you should know how to fill out the box for your test tomorrow. All right, next we'll factor out some polynomials. I'll show you guys how to do the box method. I'll show you guys an easy one, and then I'll show you guys a tough one on the next page. And then we'll talk about some division and some area. All right, so next one that we're going to work is number 6. This one is going to be quote-unquote an easy problem. Okay, so the way that we work this out is, again, we always try for GCF. Since it's just regular x squared in the front, it is not going to be a GCF. So we go straight into X box. Which means that we draw our X and we draw our box. Okay, so we do X box. What we do then is we take our first term, which is x squared, put that in the first box. Take our last term, which is -24, put that in the last box. We multiply A and C, which again, if it helps, you can label these A, B, C. We multiply A times C at the top, which again, the A, technically the understood number is 1, so technically we're doing 1 times -24, which is going to give me -24. Okay, down at the bottom, I put my B term, that's how I remember it, B for bottom. My B term is 2. So on our calculator, we can actually factor out the top number. So we always take the top number in our equation, or in our x, we type it into our calculator. So that's going to be -24 divided by x. Now, I'm not 100% sure if all of your teachers are teaching you this, but there is a second equation that you can actually use. And that second equation is the exact same, -24 divided by x, and then except that you're going to do plus x. What the second equation does is it actually adds the terms for you. So again, what that does is it technically, let me go back to 1. What it technically does is it would do something like 1 plus negative 24 gives you negative 23. 2 plus negative 12 gives you negative 10. So it adds these first two columns together for you, and it puts them on this column. The reason that we want that equation, or the reason that we want to do that, is because now it becomes super easy to find our bottom number. Remember that our bottom number, when we did the x for warm-up, the top number is, two numbers have to multiply to give you that number, and they also have to add together to give you that number. So these two numbers, I need two numbers that add together to give me 2 that are also factors of 24. Well, all these columns are factors of 24. Now I just have to look for the ones that add together to give me 2. So really what that means is I come down my list here, I look for the 2 on this column. That means that whenever I add 6 plus negative 4, I get 2. Or in other words, 6 minus 4 is 2. So that means that my two factors here are going to be 6 and negative 4. Okay, once we find our two factors in here, we then take them and plug them into our box. This is going to be 6x and negative 4x. Again, where you put them doesn't matter. I could have flipped those and it still works out the same. The reason I say that this is an easy factor is because there is no number, there is no coefficient in front of the x squared. Which means that as we take this first box out, as we take the x squared out, it's going to come out as x times x. Again, this is an easy problem because since it's x and x, what that means is that this 6 really comes out because x times 6 is 6x. This negative 4 is also going to come out because negative 4 times x gives me negative 4x. Okay, so then that means that these two on the outside here are my factors. So my factors here are going to be x plus 6 and x minus 4. Okay, I'm going to leave the one next to it completely for you guys to do. Again, it's very, very similar, and it's one of those easy problems that the numbers are just going to come out. So if we have 6x there, the 6 comes out. Negative 4x there, negative 4 comes out. All right, on the next page, I'll save one of the tough ones. If I have time, I'll come back to number 10 and work it. I want to talk about 12, and then I want to talk about 14. Okay, so for number 12, it tells you the area of a rectangular garden is given by the expression 5x squared minus 18x plus 9. And then they say, what is the width and what is the length in terms of x? So what we want to do here is we want to, what this is really saying is that your area is this. They're asking you what is the width and what is the length in terms of x. Okay, so whenever they ask something like that, basically what they want you guys to do is they want you guys to go back and give them the factors. So really what it is just one of these problems is just written in a different way. They say, pretend that this is the area. What are your length and width? Well, you would just go back here and say, well, one of these is length, the other one is width. Because when you multiply length times width, you get back to area. Now, again, it doesn't matter which one you decide to be length and which one you decide to be width. It's all going to be the same thing. So really, this is just a problem. It might as well just go ahead and say factor. And what are the factors? All right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go and factor this problem. So we have 5x squared minus 18x plus 9. Okay, this is going to be a tough factor, so I might as well not work 10 since I'm working this one out. This is going to be a tough factor. So we go in, try to find our GCF, but 5, 18, and 9 don't have any numbers in common. So since they don't have a GCF, we go straight into X box. We are going to take our first term, put it in the first box. Last term, put it in the last box. We do A times C. So again, I can label these A, B, C. A times C, which is 5 times 9, which is going to give me 45. That's A dot C. My B term is negative 18. Okay, so again on my calculator, I'll show you guys the calculator step again. It's always our top number that goes in the equation. So this is going to be 45 divided by x, and then 45 divided by x plus x. Those are my two equations. I go into my table. On my table, I'm going to be looking for my bottom number, which in this case is negative 18. I'm going to be looking at that, looking for that in the third column, which is the one that adds them together. So I can scroll a bit. I find positive 18. That's not what I want. So I can scroll the other way. Again, sometimes it's just a little bit of scrolling. I notice that I have negative 18 there. So that means that the two numbers that add together to give me negative 18 are going to be 15 and negative 3. Negative 15 plus negative 3 gives me negative 18. So my two factors then are going to be negative 15 and negative 3. Okay, I then take those, plug them in here. Okay, and now we factor this out. Again, the x squared part is pretty easy. X squared, if I was factoring this out first, x squared is always going to be x and x. But the question is, how does the 5 come out? So to do that, we're going to have to actually GCF this row coming across here. And really what I'm doing is I'm looking at my numbers, negative 3 and 5. I'm going to go ahead and write them out to the side like this. I'm going to factor out each one. So factors of 5 are 1 times 5. Factors of negative 3 are going to be 1 times negative 3. Or 3 times negative 1. Again, it doesn't matter where the negative is, but the negative can kind of float around. I'm going to take out the GCF, which is the greatest common factor between these two numbers. Well, their greatest common factor is simply 1, right? That's the only number that they share. So if I want to, I can write over here a 1x. Next, I'm going to go ahead and go up and down. So now I'm going to do these two coming up and down. Again, I'm going to take the 5 and the negative 15. I'm going to list out their factors. Factors of 5 are going to be 1 times 5. Factors of negative 15 are going to be 1 times negative 15, 3 times negative 5, 5 times negative 3, and 15 times negative 1. Those are my factors of negative 15. Well, what I notice here is that their GCF is 5. So whenever I come up and go through the 5 and the negative 15, I'm actually going to be able to factor out a 5 on the outside there. Once you get your GCFs, always make sure that they work. 1 times 5 is 5. X times x is x squared. Okay, so now I go over here. X times blank, this is the way that I always work mine out. That means that x times blank is going to have to give me negative 3x, right? We go back to our multiplication. I always think that's easier. So x times blank gives me negative 3x. That's going to be negative 3. 1x times negative 3 gives me negative 3x. Do the same thing over here. 5 times blank gives me negative 15x. Or in other words, 5x times blank gives me negative 15x. Well, that's going to have to be negative 3. 5 times negative 3 gives me negative 15, and then 1x comes in. Always, always, always make sure that you check that last number. Negative 3 times negative 3 gives me positive 9, right? Because negative times negative is a positive, and then 3 times 3 is 9. If all of our boxes work, that means that these on the outside here are my factors. Okay, so whenever they ask me what is my length and width, I'm going to go ahead and just list my factors out here. My factors are 5x minus 3 and x minus 3. Those are my two factors. Again, they wanted length and width, which means that I just have to label one of these length, the other one width, and I'm done. Right? Really, that's the only difference between 12 and 13 and all the rest of the problems is that you have to go in and say, well, one of these is length and the other one is width. Okay? 13, they give you the same thing, except that one of them is one of the factors is already given to you. You have to go in and find the other factor. Okay, last one that we'll do is 14. All right, so 14 is a multiplication problem, or sorry, a division problem. Unfortunately for us, there are no shortcuts to division, so we have to go in and do this the long way. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by rewriting this equation as x squared plus 6x plus 9 divided by 2x plus 6. Okay, so again, there are no shortcuts to division. I cannot go in and start trying to cross stuff out. Unfortunately, I can't do that. Instead, what we do is we factor out the top. Then we're going to factor out the bottom. And then we compare. Okay, so I'm going to start off by factoring out the top. So I ignore the bottom, and I just focus on the top equation. So it's going to be x squared plus 6x plus 9. And I'm going to really quickly do x box for this one. So first term is x squared, last term is 9. Again, the understood 1, so 1 times 9 is 9. My B term is 6. So I can do A, B, C. Okay, so I have numbers that multiply to give me 9, that add together to give me 6. Well, that's going to be 3 and 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. So now I plug these in, 3x and 3x. Factor these out, so x squared is going to become x and x. X times 3 gives me 3x. X times another 3 gives me 3x, and then 3 times 3 is 9. All right, so we go in, multiply those out. Again, what that means is I can actually rewrite this expression up at the top as 2 factors, x plus 3 and x plus 3. Now I want to rewrite the bottom. Now the bottom, unlike the top, whenever I have 2x plus 6, with this one I can't go into the x box. I need at least an x squared to go into the x box. Since I don't have the x squared, I can't do the box. So what I have to do simply is just GCF. So then I list out my 2, list out my 6. What are the factors of 2? What are the factors of 6? So factors of 2 are really easy. It's just 1 times 2. Factors of 6 are still pretty easy. 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. They share a 2 in common, which means that I can GCF a 2 out. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this equation for this expression as the same thing, but just with a 2 factored out. So I can rewrite this as 2 parentheses. Well, to GCF something, once you find your GCF, all you're going to do is just divide it by that number. So we're going to divide 2 by 2. 2 divided by 2 is going to give me 1, and then I have an x. So it's going to be 1x, which I can just write as x. And then 6 divided by 2, which is going to leave me with 3. So now my expression is 2 parentheses x plus 3 once I GCF the 2 out. Again, 2 divided by 2 left me with 1x, and then 6 divided by 2 left me with 3. My GCF was 2. So I can actually rewrite the bottom with the GCF taken out as 2 parentheses x plus 3. And now that, again, with division, we always try to cancel something out. Now I notice that the top and the bottom both cancel. This cancels with this, right? X plus 3 cancels with x plus 3, and I'm left with this expression. Now, one thing that you want to be careful about here is make sure that if something's on the bottom, that it stays on the bottom. If something's in the top, make sure that it stays on the top. So what that means is I can actually rewrite this expression as x plus 3 over 2. And I'm done. I cannot keep canceling stuff out. I'm just done there. At that point, I'm not going to keep reducing anything. Again, because this was in parentheses, and the parentheses are kind of like a force field. You can't go through the force field and get to the 2. So my simple answer here is going to be x plus 3 up top over 2 on the bottom. And that is my solution. Okay, I'm going to leave 15 for you guys to work. Again, I left a few of these blank. You guys should be able to work out most of these on your own. And again, sorry about this, but that's all the time I really had time for today. Good luck on your test. Good luck reviewing. Have a good day.